I didn't scream when I realized I'd won. No jumping, no phone calls, no dramatic falling to my knees like you see in those lottery commercials. Just me, standing in the kitchen of my small house in Columbus, Ohio, holding a crumpled ticket and staring at the numbers like they might rearrange themselves if I blinked too hard. They didn't. Every single number matched. I checked it 3 times. Then I checked it again on my phone, hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped it into the sink. $52 million. Not a typo. Not a joke. Not a split with 10 coworkers kind of win. Just me. Me. And the first thought that hit me wasn't joy. It was fear. See, my family, we're not exactly the kind that handles money well. My brother Rick once borrowed $2,000 from me to start a business that turned out to be flipping motorcycles he didn't even own. My mom still reminds me about the time I didn't co-sign her second mortgage. My cousin Dale hasn't spoken to me in 3 years because I refused to lend him money for a boat. Money doesn't just flow through my family, it detonates. So I made a decision right there in that kitchen, with the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. I told no one. Not my mom. Not Rick. Not even my girlfriend at the time, Melissa. Especially not Melissa. I signed the ticket, tucked it into an old cereal box, and spent the next week pretending nothing had changed. I still went to work at the auto parts warehouse. Still packed lunches. Still nodded along to Rick's complaints about never getting a fair shot. Meanwhile, I was meeting with lawyers 2 towns over, setting up a trust, learning words like asset protection and structured disbursement. I told myself I was being smart, careful, responsible, but secrets have weight. And this one, it got heavy fast. It started small. I paid off my mortgage quietly, told people I'd refinanced, bought a used truck, nice, but not flashy, said I got a good deal from a guy at work. I thought I was playing it perfectly, until Melissa found the bank statement. I'll never forget the way she looked at me, like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. "You have how much in savings?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. And just like that, the secret cracked. Melissa didn't yell at first. That's what made it worse. She just stood there in the bedroom, holding the printed bank statement like it was something fragile or dangerous. Her eyes kept scanning the numbers, going back up, then down again, like maybe she'd misunderstood a decimal point somewhere. "Is this real?" she finally asked. I should have lied. I had lied so many times already, about the mortgage, about the truck, about the random consultations I said were for a promotion that didn't exist. One more lie would have been easy, but something in her voice stopped me. "Yeah," I said quietly. "It's real." She looked up slowly, and I swear I could see the exact moment everything between us shifted. "How?" she asked. I hesitated. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew once I said it, there was no going back. "I won," I said. "The lottery." The silence that followed wasn't shock. It was calculation. Her grip tightened on the paper. "How long?" "A few weeks." "A few weeks?" she repeated, her voice rising now. "You've been sitting on this for weeks and didn't think to tell me?" "It's not that simple." "It is that simple," she snapped. "We've been talking about moving in together, about a future, and you're hiding $52 million from me." When she said the number out loud, it sounded obscene, unreal, like I was suddenly someone else entirely. "I didn't tell anyone," I said, trying to steady the situation. "Not just you. No one knows." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" She laughed bitterly. "That you don't trust anyone?" "It's not about trust. It's about survival." The word hung there, awkward and heavy. "Survival?" she repeated. "From who? Me?" I didn't answer fast enough, and that was my mistake. Her face hardened. "Wow," she said softly. "So that's what you think of me." "That's not what I meant." "No, it is," she cut in. "You think I'd use you, that I'd suddenly turn into one of those people." I ran a hand through my hair, pacing now. "You don't understand my family. What money does to them." "I'm not your family," she said sharply. "No," I said a little too quickly. "You're not." That landed harder than anything else. For a second, I thought she might cry. Instead, she folded the statement carefully, set it on the dresser, and grabbed her bag. "You know what hurts the most?" she said, her voice trembling now. "It's not the money. It's that you decided who I was without even giving me a chance." "Melissa, don't." "I hope it was worth it," she said, heading for the door. And just like that, she was gone. I stood there in the quiet, feeling something crack inside my chest. But the worst part? She wasn't the one I was most afraid of losing. That storm hadn't even started yet. I thought I had a little more time. A few weeks, maybe even a couple months before anything really blew up. Enough time to get everything locked down legally, to figure out how I was going to handle my family without it turning into a full-blown disaster. I didn't even get 3 days. Melissa didn't call me. She didn't text. She told my sister. Now, to be fair, I don't think she did it out of spite, at least not entirely. My sister, Karen, always had this way of pulling things out of people. She worked as a dental hygienist, but she could have easily been an interrogator. Calm voice, soft eyes, and somehow you'd end up telling her things you swore you'd take to the grave. Apparently, Melissa cracked in under 10 minutes. By the time my phone started ringing, the damage was already done. It was Karen. I stared at her name on the screen for a full 5 seconds before answering. My gut already knew. There's a tone people get when they know something they shouldn't. Hey, I said carefully. So, she replied, dragging the word out. You want to tell me why my boyfriend just heard from Melissa that you're a multimillionaire? There it was. No easing into it. No pretending. Just straight to the jugular. I was going to tell you, I said. When? She shot back. After we all found out on the news? Or after Rick showed up at your door with a business plan written on a napkin? I exhaled slowly. Karen, listen. No, you listen. She cut in, her voice tightening. Is it true? There's something about being asked a direct question like that. You can dodge around a lot of things in life, but that kind of question pins you in place. Yeah, I said. It's true. Silence. Then a quiet, stunned laugh. Wow, she said. Wow. That one word carried more weight than yelling ever could. How much? She asked. I hesitated again, stupid in hindsight. It only made it worse. How much? 52, I admitted. Million. She didn't say anything for a few seconds. And then, just like that, her tone changed. Not angry, not shocked. Something else. Well, she said slowly, that's life-changing. There it was. That shift. I'd heard it before, in Rick's voice when he talked about opportunities, in my mom's voice when bills were due. That subtle tilt where everything suddenly becomes about what you have, not who you are. Karen, I said carefully, this doesn't change anything. She laughed again, but this time it wasn't soft. It changes everything, she said. And before I could respond, she added, Mom's going to want to talk to you. My stomach dropped. Karen, don't. Too late, she said. I'm already at her place. Of course she was. I could practically picture it. Karen in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, my mom sitting at the table, trying to read her face. How much does she know? I asked. Karen didn't answer right away. Then she said, almost casually, I put you on speaker. And in the background, I heard my mother's voice. Is that him? That was the moment I knew, really knew, that my life as I understood it was over. Sweetheart, my mom's voice came through the phone, soft and careful. The way she used to talk to me when I was a kid who'd just broken something and she wasn't sure whether to hug me or scold me. I closed my eyes for a second. If there was anyone I had hoped might understand, it was her. Yeah, Mom. It's me. A pause. I could hear the faint clink of a spoon against a mug on her end, like she needed something to do with her hands. Karen says you have something you want to tell me. That stung. Not need to tell me. Not should. Want. Like this had all been some kind of choice I'd been selfishly enjoying. I was going to come by, I said. Talk in person. Well, she replied, a little sharper now. You didn't. I glanced at the wall, jaw tightening. I just needed a little time to figure things out. Figure what out? Karen cut in from somewhere in the background. How to hide it better. Karen, stop. I snapped, before I could catch myself. Big mistake. Because now it sounded like I had been hiding it, not protecting it, not managing it, just hiding. I wasn't hiding it, I said quickly. I was trying to handle it responsibly. Oh, don't give me that, Karen said. You don't accidentally handle responsibly $52 million without telling your own family. Enough, Mom said quietly. And just like that, the room on their end went still. That was her tone, the one that used to end arguments when we were kids. Let him speak. I swallowed. I didn't tell anyone because I knew what would happen. And what exactly is that? She asked. I hesitated, but there was no soft way to say it. This, I said. Right now? The questions. The pressure. Everyone looking at me differently. Another pause. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Not loud. Not angry. Just hurt. You think that little of us? There it was. The question I'd been trying to avoid from the very beginning. No, I said. I think exactly enough of us. Silence slammed into the line. Even Karen didn't have a comeback for that one. I've spent my whole life watching what money does in this family. I continued, my voice steadier now. Loans that never get paid back. Fights over nothing. People keeping score. I didn't want that again, not on this scale. You could have trusted us, Mom said. I didn't trust what it would turn into, I replied. Another long silence. Then she sighed, deep, tired, like something inside her had just given up. Well, she said slowly, you've already made your decision. That's not fair. No, she interrupted. What's not fair is finding out from someone else that my son doesn't trust me. That hit harder than anything Karen had said. I do trust you, I insisted. Then prove it. Karen jumped in quickly. Come over. Tonight. Let's talk about it like a family. I knew what that meant. Not a conversation. A negotiation. A weighing of needs, wants, expectations. I looked around my quiet house. The same walls, the same furniture, but everything felt different now. Like I was already standing on the outside of something I used to belong to. I'll think about it, I said. Karen scoffed. Of course you will. Mom didn't say anything else. She just hung up. And for the first time since I'd won, I realized something I hadn't been willing to admit before. Keeping the secret might have cost me everything. But telling it, that might cost even more. I didn't go that night. I told myself I needed space. Time to think. Time to plan what I'd say so it didn't turn into exactly what I was trying to avoid. But deep down, I knew the truth. I didn't go because I was afraid. Not of yelling. Not of accusations. Of expectations. The next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls and 3 voicemails. All from Rick. That alone told me everything I needed to know. Rick never called that much unless he needed something. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at his name like it might somehow soften if I waited long enough. It didn't. I hit play on the first voicemail. Hey man. Rick's voice came through way too upbeat. Heard some interesting news. Call me back. Click. Second voicemail. All right, so I guess it's true, he said, tone shifting just slightly. Look, we should talk. I've actually been working on something big. Like, really big. Of course he had. Third voicemail. Don't ignore me, all right? Now the edge was there. We're brothers. We don't do that. I let the phone drop onto the bed. There it was, the progression. Curiosity. Opportunity. Entitlement. Right on schedule. I didn't call him back. Instead, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and tried to convince myself I still had control over this situation. That lasted about 20 minutes. Then there was a knock at the door. Not a polite one. Loud. Repetitive. The kind that says, I know you're in there. I didn't even need to look. I opened the door, and there he was. Rick. Same worn leather jacket. Same restless energy. But now there was something new in his eyes. Focus. On me. Well, he said, pushing past me like he owned the place. Guess you've been holding out on us. I shut the door slowly. You could have called. I did, he shot back. You didn't answer. I needed time. Rick laughed, already pacing my living room, taking it all in like he was seeing it for the first time. Time for what? To count it. I clenched my jaw. Don't start. Oh, I'm just getting started, he said, turning to face me. 52 million, huh? Hearing him say it felt different than hearing Melissa or Karen. With them, it was emotional. With Rick, it was transactional. Yeah, I said. That's the number. He nodded slowly, like he was doing math in his head. You know, he said, this could fix everything. There it was. Not help. Not support. Fix. What exactly is everything? I asked. He spread his arms. Mom's house. My situation. Hell, we could finally start that business I told you about. The real version this time. I let out a short, humorless laugh. The motorcycle thing? No, he said quickly. Bigger. Better. I've been thinking. That's the problem, Rick, I cut in. You're always thinking, not doing. His face tightened instantly. Wow, he said. So that's how it's going to be now? You get rich and suddenly you're better than me? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. We're family, he said. That money isn't just yours. And there it was. Not a request. A claim. I felt something shift inside me, something colder than fear. No, I said quietly. It is. Rick stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. And for the second time in 2 days, I realized maybe he was right. Rick didn't explode the way I expected. No shouting, no slammed doors, no dramatic, "you'll regret this" speech like something out of a bad movie. That would have been easier to deal with. Instead, he just smiled. Not a warm smile. Not even a fake one. A calculating one. "All right," he said slowly, nodding like he'd just accepted the rules of a game. "Your money." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. "Glad we understand each other," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Oh, I understand you perfectly now," he said, heading toward the door. "Took me a while, but yeah, I get it." He paused with his hand on the doorknob, glancing back over his shoulder. "You know what the funny thing is?" he added. "You were so busy worrying about everyone coming after you, you didn't realize you already lost them." Then he walked out. No slam, just a quiet click. And somehow, that was worse. Hear from him for the rest of the day, or the next, but I did hear from everyone else. It started with texts, then calls, then messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins, old friends, even a guy I barely remembered from high school suddenly checking in like we'd shared some deep bond. The news spread fast, faster than I thought possible, and it didn't take long before the tone shifted. At first, it was light. "Hey, heard you hit it big. Congrats, man." Then a little more personal. "We should catch up sometime. It's been too long." Then, inevitably, "I hate to ask, but I'm in a tough spot right now." I stopped responding, not out of anger, just exhaustion. Every message felt like it had a price tag attached to it. And the worst part? I couldn't even fully blame them. Because if the roles were reversed, would I be any different? That question stuck with me more than anything Rick had said. 3 days after he showed up, I finally went to Mom's house. Not because I was ready, but because avoiding it wasn't working anymore. Karen opened the door. She didn't smile, didn't hug me, just stepped aside and said, "She's in the kitchen." Same kitchen we'd all grown up in. Same table. Same worn-out chair where Mom always sat. But the moment I walked in, it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a meeting. Mom looked up at me. Her eyes softened for just a second, just a flicker of something familiar. Then it was gone. "You came," she said. "Yeah," I replied, pulling out a chair. I said I would. Karen leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching like a referee. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then Mom folded her hands and asked the question I'd been expecting since the beginning. "What happens now?" Simple words. Heavy meaning. I looked at her, at Karen, at the house. All the history wrapped up in those walls. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. There was no answer that would make everyone happy. "No matter what I do," I said slowly, "someone's going to walk away from this angry." Karen scoffed. "That's a convenient way to justify keeping everything." I didn't say that. "Then what are you saying?" I took a breath. "I'm saying, I'm trying to figure out how to help without destroying everything." Mom studied my face carefully. "And have you figured it out?" she asked. I shook my head. "No," I admitted. "But I know one thing." "What's that?" Karen said. I looked straight at both of them. "I'm not going to be pressured into decisions just because I got lucky." The room went quiet again. But this time, it felt different. Not explosive, not emotional, just distant. Like we were already on opposite sides of something that couldn't be fixed. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't sure if the money was the problem anymore, or just the thing that finally exposed it. No one yelled after that. That's what stuck with me the most. No dramatic blow-up. No one storming out. No slammed doors echoing through the house I grew up in. Just silence. The kind that settles in your bones and makes everything feel final. Mom looked down at her hands, slowly rubbing her thumb against her wedding ring, a habit she picked up after Dad passed. Karen didn't move at all, still leaning against the counter, arms crossed like she'd built a wall out of herself. I waited. For something. A question. A compromise. Even anger. But what I got instead was acceptance. Not the good kind. The kind that closes doors. "Well," Mom finally said, her voice quiet, "I suppose there's nothing more to talk about right now." That hurt more than if she'd screamed. "Mom," I started. She shook her head gently. "You've made it clear where you stand." "That's not fair," I said, even though part of me knew it was. Karen let out a small, dry laugh. "It's actually very clear." I looked between them, feeling like I was standing outside my own life. "I didn't say I wouldn't help," I said. "I said I wouldn't be pressured. And to you, that's different." Karen replied. To us? It feels the same. Mom finally looked up at me again. And this time, there was no softness left. Money changes things, she said. I almost answered it doesn't have to. But standing there, in that kitchen, looking at the distance between us, I didn't believe it anymore. I'm still your son, I said instead. She gave a small nod. Yes, she said. You are. But she didn't say anything else. No, I love you. No, this will pass. Just that. And somehow, that made it clear everything had already changed. I left not long after. Karen didn't walk me out. Mom didn't stop me. I drove home in silence, hands tight on the steering wheel, replaying every word, every pause, every look. Rick was right about one thing. I hadn't noticed when I lost them, because it didn't happen all at once. It happened in layers, in small moments, in things left unsaid. Weeks passed, then months. The calls stopped. The messages dried up. Birthdays came and went with short, polite texts. Holidays turned into maybe next year. I kept my distance. They kept theirs. And somewhere along the way, we all settled into this quiet, unspoken understanding. Things would never go back to the way they were. I did help them, not the way they expected. I paid off Mom's house, anonymously, through the trust. She never heard it from me. Maybe she suspected. Maybe she didn't. I cleared some of Rick's debts too. No conversations. No conditions. No thank yous. Just done. Because despite everything, they were still my family. Even if we didn't feel like one anymore. Sometimes I sit on my porch in the evenings, watching the sun drop behind the trees, and I think about that moment in my kitchen, the ticket in my hand, the numbers lining up like fate had decided to pick me. People always say winning the lottery is the best thing that can happen to you. Maybe they're right, but they don't tell you what it costs. Not just the obvious stuff. Not the strangers or the requests or the pressure. The real cost? It's quieter than that. It's in the way people look at you differently. In the conversations that never feel the same again. In realizing that money doesn't change who people are. It just reveals it. And sometimes, that's the hardest part to live with. About a year later, I ran into Karen at a grocery store. No dramatic setup. No music playing in the background. Just a regular Tuesday afternoon, me standing in the cereal aisle, staring at a box I didn't need. Same aisle where I used to hide that lottery ticket. Funny how life circles back like that. I saw her before she saw me. She looked the same, but not. A little older around the eyes. A little quieter in how she moved. Like life had sanded off some of the sharper edges. For a second, I thought about turning around. Walking away. Keeping things exactly as they'd been. Distant, controlled, predictable. But instead, I said her name. Karen. She froze. Then slowly turned. And for a moment, we just stood there, looking at each other like strangers trying to remember why they felt familiar. Hey, she said. No anger. No warmth either. Just neutral. Hey, I replied. Silence stretched between us. Uncomfortable, but not unbearable. How have you been? She asked. It sounded like a normal question. It wasn't. Good, I said. You? Same. Another pause. Then she glanced at the cereal in my hand and gave a small, almost amused smile. You still eat that stuff? I looked down, then shrugged. Some things don't change. That got a real smile out of her. Small, but real. And just like that, something shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but softened. We didn't talk about the money. Not once. We talked about work. About Mom's garden. About how Rick had moved out of state chasing another opportunity. Normal things. Safe things. Before we parted, she hesitated. Then said, she asks about you sometimes. My chest tightened. Yeah. Karen nodded. She won't say it outright. But she does. I swallowed. Is she okay? She's fine, Karen said. Then, after a second, she misses you. In her way. In her way. That sounded about right. We stood there one last moment. I'm glad I saw you, I said. She gave a small nod. Me too. And then we walked in opposite directions. Things didn't magically go back to normal after that. There was no big reunion. No tearful apologies. But every now and then a text. A short call. A little less distance each time. If there's anything I've learned from all of this, it's this. Money doesn't just test relationships. It reveals which ones are built to survive the truth. And sometimes, they bend. Sometimes they break. But sometimes, if you're patient enough, they find a quieter way to exist.